Welcome to Free Sky Tyrannus.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my How to Build a Quadcopter video series. In part 1, I showed you how to connect the power to your ESCs, hook up your power cable, connect the VBAT to your naze, and we connected all the signal wires into the naze and connected the receiver to our naze also. In my build, I'm using a FreeSky D4R2 receiver that supports CPPM. So CPPM is just going to allow me to use channel 1 on the receiver and output 8 channels to my naze. So if you're using a receiver that doesn't have CPPM, like this FreeSky V8R7 II, you would need a breakout cable like this. This is an RC breakout cable for the naze 32. And the way you would hook this up is on the corner right here, you'll see this little triangle. This triangle basically says this is the negative. So the negative is connected on this wire right here with the power and channel 1. So the way you hook this up is on your naze. You would hook up the negative on the very top left pin of the receiver input. Like that. And then you would take channel 1 with the power and ground and hook it up to your receiver on channel 1. So on receivers, the outside is the negative, and then power middle, and channel 1 or the signal is on the left. So you just hook up the power ground signal over here with the ground on the right. That, and then channel 2 would go to channel 2 over here. Signal would be on the left. So the rest of these are just signal wires. And then you just hook up the rest according to the number on the naze. So channel 1 is your first one, 2 is your second, 3 is there, 4 is on the other side, and then do the rest for the rest of the channels. And this will give you the 8 channels you need for your naze. Before you get started, if you're using this D4R2 using CPPM, you have to put a jumper wire. These little square things that came with the receiver are jumper wires. You have to put this across 3 and 4 to enable, or signals 3 and 4 to enable the CPPM. So if you don't do this, your naze 32 won't recognize your signal. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is set up your transmitter to work with a quad. I'm using a FreeSky Tyrannus X9D. I'm sure there's plenty of videos on YouTube showing you how to use or program the other transmitters, but this is the one I know, and this is what we're going to use for our build.
Welcome to Free Sky Tyrannus 0 dB.
Okay, so the first thing you need to do is set up a new model for your new quad. So go to menu, scroll down to an empty bank, hold enter, and then hit create model.
Switch warning.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disable the switch warning because it's annoying and doesn't do anything. So you have your model selected, you hit page down, and then I'm going to go down here and disable my switch and throttle warning. Disable, disable. Okay, now we're going to go up and we're going to name this model. So to name the model, just hold enter, stop, and then you can start naming it. I'll just name this one Emax. And to get a capital, just hit enter or hold enter, and it'll go to the next one. And then when you're done, hit exit. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bind our receiver to our remote. So the way you do that is you go down here on page 2 and you scroll down to this part. So since I'm using my FreeSky Tyrannus D4R2, you have to change the mode from D16 to D8. So hold enter until it starts flashing, push up. Now you're in D8 mode. Now you're ready to bind. So hit enter and then hold here. Okay, so to bind your receiver to your transmitter, you would have to hold this failsafe button on the D4R2 and power up your quad at the same time. So to make it easy, I'm just going to unplug this wire first. And then when you plug it back in, make sure you have the signal on the right, power in the middle, and ground on the left. So in your transmitter, go select bind, and it'll start beeping to let you know it's in the bind mode. Beep. Okay. And then you're just going to power up your quad. And then hold the failsafe button and then plug in your power. It's going to flash and then hit enter, and then you can exit out. And then when you unplug this and plug it back in, it should turn green. So you have so it's green, so you know it's bound. Okay, so we're ready to connect to the Baseflight. So check on my website for links to how to download Baseflight and the drivers you need to enable the Baseflight to communicate with the nades. So since I've already installed it on my computer, I'm just going to go ahead and launch Baseflight. Launch Baseflight. Here. And then you're just going to use your mini USB and connect it to your nades. Connecting, and nades is set to auto connect, so you can see right here it's connected. So you'll see that my quad is not tilting the correct direction of this little preview right here, and that's because I have my nades 32 pointing to the right. You'll see this little arrow is pointing to the right. So in configurations, so for my setting, I'm going to set it to 90 and hit save. If you have your arrow pointing to the back, you would set that to 180. If your arrow is pointing to the left, you would set that to -90. Okay, so we're just going to go back to setup here and then check. Everything looks okay now. It's tilting the same way. Okay, and then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to calibrate the accelerometer. So to do that, you leave your quad completely flat on the table and you hit this button right here. You know, calibrate, and it's done. Okay, so this is not a very this is not going to be a very in-depth how-to on how to tune the nades and everything. This is going to be just a really quick, easy way to set up your nades. We're not going to get into the super details and everything. This is just a quick and dirty way to get you up and flying. Once you start flying and start messing with Baseflight, you'll learn it very quickly. It's a really easy program to use. Okay, so we're just going to go to configurator, and then just make sure your setting is set on quad X, because we're setting up a FPV racer right here. So the features I'm going to use is PPM, because I'm using this D4R2 that outputs 8 channels on one. I'm going to enable this. If you're using a receiver that doesn't have CPPM and you're connecting it this way with the breakout cables, you would not enable this right here. And then the next thing we're going to enable is or leave the battery voltage monitoring enabled, and then we're going to select don't spin the motors when armed. So that's basically when you arm your motors, the props aren't going to automatically just start spinning. Okay, so for now we're going to leave the throttles as is. We'll set that later. And then for the battery voltage, this is the threshold you set for before your buzzer starts going off. So default is set at 3.3. Since we'll be using a 3-cell, so this is set at 3.3 times 3, so that's 9.9. So whatever number you set here is the threshold for the buzzer to go off. So 9.9 is a little low for a LiPo battery. I usually like to use 3.4, so that gives me about 10.2 volts before the buzzer starts going off. Okay, so hit save. And then for now, we're going to skip the tip tuning part. We're going to do a whole video on that. But right now, you can leave everything on default. The quad fly is pretty good on the default. Okay, so next we're going to set up the receiver for our nades. So to do that, you have to plug in the power to your quad. Turn on your transmitter.
Welcome to Free Sky Tyrannus.
Okay, you see it's green, it's bound. But look on my configurator. This is the mode 2 transmitter, meaning the throttle is on the left. But you'll see that my settings are completely weird and it's not reacting correctly. And that's because my channel map is wrong. I know for Tyrannus, it should be on this one. So when you set it to this one, hit save. Now your throttle is correct. Yaw, your pitch, and your roll. So everything looks good there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test the motors right here. So if you go back in configuration, you're going to see this little diagram right here. And this basically shows you the ESC and the direction that they should be spinning. So 1 should be spinning clockwise, 2 should be spinning counterclockwise, 3 counterclockwise, 4 clockwise. Okay, so we're going to go back to motor testing. Okay, to test your motors, you just hit this check right here. And then you can individually turn on or off the motors, and just make sure that the numbers here, 1, 2, 3, and 4 correspond to the motor. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then make sure they're spinning the correct direction. So to do this, I like to get a little piece of paper and just put it over the motor like this. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, when you're testing motors, make sure you turn the propellers off. Or take the propellers off, because all this tuning and Baseflight stuff, it's really easy to forget that you have motors on. And the next thing you know, you got blood splattered everywhere. Okay, so we're going to test number 1. 1 should be spinning clockwise. And it is. 2 should be counterclockwise. And it's not. You can see it's spinning clockwise. So to reverse the direction of the motor, you would just take any 2 of the motor wires, you just pull 2 out, and then you just flip them around. And then that'll reverse the direction of the motors. And now it's spinning counterclockwise. 3. Counterclockwise. 4 should be clockwise. Clockwise. Good. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is set up our flight modes on our transmitter. So before you can do that, you have to figure out which switches you're going to use. I like to use this one for the flight modes, and then I'll set up the SD for arming and the buzzer. Okay, so first you have to program the switches to a channel. So just go in here, go page down, whoops, page down, until you get over to page 6 of 13. So you go down here. So the first 4 channels are reserved for, you know, your controls, and then channel 5 would be the first channel of the auxiliary. It would be auxiliary 1, and then channel 6 would be auxiliary 2 over here. So you just assign a switch, hold enter, and then you hit source, enter, and then your source, once you have that flashing, you just, you know, move the switch that you want to use, hit enter, exit out, and then now we're going to set auxiliary 2, and this would be arming and disarming. So go down here, arm, go down, assign this switch. So now your switches are programmed. You're gonna plug your battery back in, so your receiver will work. So here, it's plugged in. Now you go to mode selection, and then when you flip these switches around, you'll see this orange part changes. Whoops, this one. Okay, so basically, since this is my flight mode, auxiliary 1, I usually like to have the up, well, whatever position this orange one is in, the checkbox is the flight mode. So I'm going to set my angle at the high position. Angle is pretty much like a auto leveling mode when you're flying. If you let go of your sticks, it's going to auto level. And I think, well, I don't know what the angle is, but you're set at a certain angle. And then I'm going to set the middle one to horizon. Horizon is basically like angle. It'll self-level, except there's no angle limit, so you can still do rolls and flips and stuff like that. And then for the low, if you have nothing set, default is rate mode, which is acro. That's when you can control everything manually. That's the one I like to fly in. And then for auxiliary 2, this is going to be my arming and buzzer switch. So I'm going to set arming as forward. So I'm going to set low for arming. And then I'm going to set my buzzer or my beeper in the high position. So once you have all these set, hit save. So now if we arm it, now we got these. So the green means active. So if we go back to normal here, it's not armed. Go back to arm, and then you got all your stuff. Beeper, whatever. And that's how you set your flight modes. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to calibrate the ESCs. So the Emax ESCs calibration is a little bit different from normal ESCs. I'll tell you how to do it first, and then we'll actually do it. So to do it, you would have to first unplug your motor, and then you push the master slider all the way up to the top. And then when you plug in your motors, you're going to hear 2 beeps. And then right after you hear the 2 beeps, you have 2 seconds to move this master switch all the way to the bottom. If you don't do it in time, it's not going to work. And then after you do that, you'll hear 1 long beep, and it should be done. So we'll plug this in. You'll hear 2 beeps.
Telemetry recovered.
And you move it down. 1 long beep. And you're done. So now if you check it, they should all be spinning up at the same time. Yeah, they're all spinning. You can check individual ones. So it spins at about 1040. It's about the same. About the same. Yep, and they're calibrated. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is just to show you that the buzzer works. You're going to connect your buzzer with a negative on top to your buzzer on your nays, like this. So when you go in your flight modes and you push this up, you'll hear it start beeping, like that. And this is arm, and that's beeping. Okay. So that pretty much concludes our setup on our Baseflight. If you see that I plugged this in right now, I'll turn on my transmitter.
Welcome to Free Sky Tyrannus.
Everything pretty much works. This is buzzer. And if I push it forward, it's arm. You'll see this little green light come on. My flight modes, it's acro. If I move my throttle, Okay, so now that we have our nays and everything set up, let's finish the rest of the build. So what I did here is basically just zip tied all the ESC wires onto the frame. I shortened the wire to the buzzer, and I added a LC filter for the FPV part. LC filter basically does is clean up the power signal, or not the power, but the power coming in from the battery, because of the ESCs and the motors, the power coming off the power distribution board can get a little noisy. So that's going to cause some static and lines in your monitor. So what the LC filter does is it cleans up that signal. So if you don't have an LC filter, you can just connect a wire, a positive and ground wire, to directly to your battery or on your power distribution board. So let's hook up the camera and the transmitter now. Okay, so what I have here is a little wiring harness that I made for the FPV camera and the transmitter. The way you hook it up is you just take your power directly from your battery, or your LC filter is going to come into this little plug right here, and the power is going to come out and it's going to split, and you'll just split the power to your video camera here, right here, and then to your video transmitter, and then the ground over here is going to split. One part is going to go to your camera, and the other one's going to go to your video transmitter. So normally the video transmitter we're using is a Immersion RC 600 milliwatt. So it comes with this big 5-pin Molex connector. So what you're going to do is you're basically going to strip all the wires off it except the video. So the video is the center wire. So you're going to strip these two, and you're just going to leave this the video input. So this is basically what I did for this little connector right here. I stripped all the wires except for the center one, which is the video, and you're just going to connect that to the video part on your video transmitter. So on the video camera. So on these, one thing to note is this wiring harness will only work for these kind of cameras, the cameras that accept 12 volts. So if you have one of the other cameras, like the CMOS cameras that require 5 volts in, you'll need a little step down video converter, or you can use this video out, 5 volt out from your transmitter. Okay, so let's mount our video camera onto our quad. So we're going to do that by using this little adapter that comes with the Emax kit. The way you hook this up is this is going to be the bottom of your camera, and the connector is always on the right. So if you do like this, this is the bottom. You put the tabs on the bottom like that. And the way we're going to mount this up is we're not going to use screws or nuts. We're going to use a coffee stirrer and some zip ties. Right? So what you do with the coffee stirrer, you're just going to cut 4 little pieces. You're going to cut 2 short and 2 longer. So after you cut it, it's going to look like this. It's going to look like this. You have two shorter ones here, and then 2 a little bit longer. The reason why you want a short one and a long one is when you're flying your quad, if you're going forward, you don't want the camera to be pointing at the ground, because then it makes it a little hard to see where you're going. So you're going to mount it to where the camera is going to point up just a tiny bit, like that. So when you're flying, when you're tilting forward, you can still see where you're going. So the way you wire this up is you just take your zip ties and you put them through these holes here. Okay, so once you have these zip ties pushed through your hole, you make sure you have the bottom right here on the bottom. You're gonna put the smaller coffee stirrers on the bottom like this, and then your longer ones are gonna go up top, so you get that nice tilt. Like this. So this is the bottom of the camera. I have the short ones up top, or I mean short ones on bottom and long ones on top. And then once you have that, put your tab on the bottom of the camera, and then you just put your zip ties through the holes like that. And then once you have that, you just take another zip tie. These little squares I have are basically just the zip ties with the zip tie cut off. So I'm just going to reuse some old zip ties that I had, and basically you just push these on there. Just like that. So you can see that the camera is a little bit tilted up. So once you're done, just cut the zip ties off. And we're done. So we're ready to mount the camera and the transmitter onto our quad now. Okay, so now we're ready to mount our camera and transmitter on our quad. So we're just going to plug everything up, plug in our camera to the harness, and then plug the harness power on the transmitter, and then your video input. That. And then you're going to plug in your LC filter to power your FPV. And then you're going to put the tabs on top and bottom. Just going to go in these little tabs. Oh, make sure you pull your antenna through. And then to screw these on, you use the M3x6 screws that came with your kit. There should be 29 of them in this bag. Just like that. And that's pretty much it with our build. So if you plan on doing any kind of recording, you can mount the GoPro or Mobius anti-vibration mount on here. You just put the little rubber things through here, and you just mount it basically like that. 8. So the last thing we're going to do before we go fly is set up a failsafe on our receiver. This part is very important because if you don't set up a failsafe and you fly too far out, or you fly in an area that has too much radio signal or whatever, your quad is going to remember the last position of the transmitter before it lost signal. So if you're flying like this, you can fly like a mile away before your battery dies, or worse, you can fly into someone. So what we're going to do is set up, or I'll demonstrate what it does. So if you like this.
Welcome to Free Sky Tyrannus.
Okay, so you're going to arm, and then you're going to fly, and then you lose signal. So your quad is going to keep flying like this.
Welcome to Free Sky Tyrannus.
So what we're going to do is set up the failsafe to put the throttle at 0. So it's much better for it to just drop out of the sky instead of fly, out of control into someone and hurt someone. So the way you set up failsafe is you're going to put your throttle at the very bottom, and then you're just going to push this little failsafe button on the side of the receiver. briefly for under 1 second. So just a quick little click, and then that should be it. Just like that. And then now when you fly, your motor should cut off when you lose signal. There you go. Your failsafe is set. Okay, so all that we pretty much have left to do is figure out what we're going to do with these antenna wires. The way I like to do it is I like to just put a little zip tie through here, like this. Tighten it. And then just get a little bit of heat shrink tubing, and then just kind of measure your length. You just want to cut it just a little bit under the length of the zip tie, like that. And then you're just gonna put your antenna next to the zip tie, and then just put the tubing over it. That just kind of keeps them up standing. And I like to bend the zip ties like that, so the tubing doesn't fall off. So that's pretty much it with the build of the quadcopter. I mean, you can see everything here is nice and clean. Oh, the last thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna screw on the antenna for the video transmitter, and then we're pretty much ready to fly. So, okay, so the antennas are just gonna stay up like this, and then last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mount the propellers. Okay, so we basically have the quadcopter all built and everything's ready to fly. I just put a little Velcro strap on the bottom for the battery, and I mounted the anti-vibration mount for the Mobius. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. We're going to go take it out for a flight and see how it flies.
Welcome to Free Sky Tyrannus.
So just something to note, I did a quick pitch tuning session before filming, and the biggest change I made was to increase the pitch and roll rate to 0.60 and yaw rate to 0.75. If you don't increase the rates, you can't do tight rolls like this. I tried doing a roll with default pitch and I crashed because it was such a huge roll. Overall, I was really impressed by how well the Emax Nighthawk 250 Pro flew. The 6-inch carbon fiber props with the 2300 kV motors provided loads of power. The quad felt really stable with no noticeable oscillations in ascent or descent, even in 10 mph winds. Even with just a couple small pitch changes, the quad already felt really locked in and flew really responsive. I've got loads of other videos coming up, so don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.